The overhead fluorescent lights of JFK International Airport cast harsh shadows across Gate 23, where Flight 447 to Los Angeles was boarding. Elena Martinez adjusted her navy blue uniform blazer and checked her reflection in the glass partition one last time. 5 years as a flight attendant had taught her that first impressions mattered, even at 30,000 feet. "Morning, Elena," her coworker Brenda called out, rolling a service cart toward the aircraft. "Full flight today. Business travelers, families, the usual chaos." Elena smiled, grabbing her carry-on. Just another Monday. But it wouldn't be just another Monday. The November air was crisp as Elena stepped through the jet bridge into the Boeing 737. She loved this moment. The aircraft still quiet, clean, pristine before passengers brought their lives aboard. She moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency, checking overhead bins, ensuring safety cards were in place, straightening seatbelts. First class filled first, as always. Elena positioned herself near the galley, greeting passengers with her warmest smile. Businessmen in expensive suits barely acknowledged her. A woman in designer sunglasses requested champagne before takeoff. An elderly couple needed help with their luggage. Then he walked on. Victor Moretti commanded attention without trying. Tall, broad-shouldered, maybe early 40s, he wore a charcoal Italian suit that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. Salt and pepper hair was swept back from a face that could have been handsome if it weren't so cold. His eyes, dark, calculating, swept the cabin like a predator assessing territory. 2 men followed at a discreet distance. They didn't sit together, but Elena noticed how they positioned themselves with clear sight lines. Security, bodyguards. She'd seen the type before: wealthy executives, politicians, people who lived with threats. But it was the child that made Elena's breath catch. A small boy, maybe 7 or 8, trailed behind Victor. He was tiny for his age, drowning in an expensive navy sweater. Dark curls fell across his forehead, partially obscuring enormous brown eyes that seemed too old, too haunted for such a young face. He clutched a worn, stuffed rabbit against his chest, its fur matted from years of handling. "Seat 2A and 2B, Victor said, his voice carrying the hint of a New York accent buried under years of careful refinement. Elena stepped forward. "Welcome aboard. Can I help you get settled?" Victor's eyes met hers briefly, assessing, dismissing. "We're fine." The boy said nothing. He slipped past Elena like a shadow, pressing himself against the window seat. Victor took the aisle, creating a barrier between his son and the world. Elena watched as the boy arranged his rabbit carefully on his lap, his small hands trembling slightly. He stared out the window, but his eyes seemed unfocused, looking at nothing. Selective mutism, Elena thought immediately. She'd seen it before. Her younger brother Miguel had gone through a phase at age 6, after their father left. Months of silence, of watching the world from behind glass walls. "Can I get you something to drink before takeoff?" Elena asked, directing her question to both father and son. "Scotch, neat," Victor said. "He'll have apple juice." Elena crouched slightly, bringing herself to the boy's eye level. "Hi there. What's your rabbit's name?" The child didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge she'd spoken. His fingers tightened around the stuffed animal. "He doesn't speak," Victor said flatly. "Don't bother." The words landed like a slap. Elena saw the boy's shoulders hunch, saw shame flash across his young face. Victor had said it as if his son weren't sitting right there, as if the child couldn't hear his own condition announced to a stranger. Elena straightened, maintaining her professional smile. "Apple juice coming right up." As she walked away, she felt eyes on her back. When she glanced over her shoulder, the boy was watching her through his curtain of curls. The moment their eyes met, he looked away. The rest of boarding passed in controlled chaos. A mother with twin toddlers struggled down the aisle. An elderly man complained about his seat assignment. A young couple in first class couldn't keep their hands off each other. Elena handled it all with practiced grace, but her attention kept drifting back to seat 2A. The boy sat motionless, his rabbit clutched tight. He never reached for the iPad his father placed on the tray table, never touched the juice Elena delivered, just stared out the window as New York City sprawled below, gray and cold under November clouds. Captain Richardson's voice crackled over the intercom. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure." Elena took her jump seat, buckling in as the aircraft pushed back from the gate. She watched passengers settle in, checking phones, opening books, closing eyes for sleep. Her gaze found the boy again. He was signing. The movements were small, almost invisible. His right hand moved against his chest, fingers forming shapes that Elena recognized. Her heart clenched, scared. Mama, please. Basic ASL, poorly formed but unmistakable. Elena had learned sign language when Miguel stopped speaking. Their mother couldn't afford extensive therapy, so 12-year-old Elena had checked out library books, watched YouTube videos, practiced until her fingers ached. She'd learned to communicate when words failed. This boy was trying to speak, but no one was listening. The engines roared to life. The aircraft accelerated down the runway, that thrilling moment of physics defying gravity. Around her, passengers reacted in familiar ways, gripping armrests, holding their breath, closing their eyes. The boy in 2A went rigid, his small body pressed back against the seat, knuckles white around his rabbit. His lips moved silently, forming words no one could hear. Victor stared at his phone, completely unaware. They reached cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign dinked off. Elena unbuckled and began service, pushing the beverage cart through first class. Victor ordered another scotch without looking up from his tablet. The boy still hadn't touched his juice. "Are you hungry, sweetie?" Elena asked softly, crouching beside the boy's seat. "We have pretzels, cookies. Miss Martinez." Victor's voice cut through her words. His eyes were cold. "I told you, don't bother. He won't respond. I'm just doing your job." "I understand." Victor's tone made it clear the conversation was over. "We don't need anything else." Elena straightened, her professional mask firmly in place. But as she turned away, she saw it again. The boy's hands moving in small, desperate gestures against his chest. Help. Scared. Alone. An hour into the flight, turbulence hit. It started mild, a few bumps, the aircraft swaying gently. Passengers barely reacted, but then they hit a rough patch and the plane dropped suddenly. Overhead, bins rattled. Someone's laptop slid off a tray table. A woman gasped. Elena was strapped into her jump seat, hands gripping the armrests. She'd been through turbulence hundreds of times, but it never got comfortable. The aircraft shuddered, rose, dropped again. In seat 2A, the boy was coming apart. Elena saw it from across the cabin. His small body had gone completely rigid. Silent tears streamed down his face. His mouth opened in what should have been a scream, but no sound emerged. The rabbit fell from his lap to the floor. His hands clutched at his seatbelt, his sweater, his own arms, anything to hold on to. Victor sat beside him, jaw clenched, riding out the turbulence with grim determination. He didn't notice his son's terror, or he'd learned not to see it. The aircraft dropped again, harder this time. Several passengers cried out. The boy in 2A was hyperventilating now, his chest heaving, his face pale. A full panic attack, silent and invisible to everyone but Elena. The turbulence eased. The seatbelt sign remained on, but the worst had passed. Passengers relaxed, laughed nervously, returned to their books and movies. The boy continued to shake. Elena made a decision that would change everything. She unbuckled her seatbelt despite the illuminated sign. Regulations said she should stay seated, but regulations hadn't seen that child's face. She crossed the cabin, crouched in the aisle beside seat 2A, and looked directly at the boy. His eyes met hers, wide, terrified, drowning. Elena raised her hands slowly, deliberately. She formed the signs carefully, making sure he could see. You. Safe. With. Me. The boy's breathing stopped. His eyes went wide with shock. Someone had seen him. Someone had spoken his language. Victor's head snapped toward Elena. "What are you—" "Turbulence can be scary," Elena said calmly, her eyes still on the boy. She signed as she spoke. "But we're okay now. You're safe." The boy's trembling slowed. His eyes fixed on Elena's hands like a drowning man watching a lifeline. She signed again. "Breathe. Slow. Like this." She demonstrated, exaggerating her breathing. The boy tried to copy her, shaky at first, then steadying. Color returned to his face. Victor watched this exchange with an expression Elena couldn't read. Suspicion? Wonder? Both? "You know sign language," he said. It wasn't a question. "Some. My brother." Elena stopped herself. Passengers didn't need her life story. "I know enough." She picked up the fallen rabbit, handed it to the boy. His small fingers closed around it gratefully. Then hesitantly, his hands moved. "Thank you." The signs were clearer now, more confident. He was trying to communicate. Elena signed back. "You're welcome. What's your name?" The boy looked at his father, uncertain. Victor's jaw was tight, his body language defensive. But something in his eyes had shifted. "Marco," Victor said quietly. "His name is Marco." The moment Elena signed to Marco, something fundamental shifted in the cabin of Flight 447. It was as if someone had switched on a light in a room that had been dark for too long. Marco's small hands moved hesitantly, forming signs that were rough but readable. "Your name?" Elena spelled it out carefully. "Elena." A ghost of something, not quite a smile but close, flickered across Marco's face. His fingers moved again. "Pretty. Miss Martinez." Victor's voice was controlled, but Elena heard the edge beneath it. "I need to speak with you, privately." Elena straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. "Of course, Mr. Moretti, once the seatbelt sign is off. Now." It wasn't a request. Elena glanced at the illuminated sign, then at Victor's face. She'd dealt with demanding passengers before, but something about Victor Moretti made her pulse quicken. Not fear exactly, but awareness. This man was accustomed to being obeyed. "The galley," she said. "Follow me." They moved to the small prep area between first class and business. Victor filled the narrow space, his presence somehow larger than his physical form. Up close, Elena could see the details. Expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask cigarette smoke. A small scar above his left eyebrow. Eyes that held calculations she couldn't begin to guess at. "How do you know ASL?" Victor asked without preamble. "My younger brother, Miguel. He's 16 now, but when he was little." Elena paused, unsure how much to share. "He went through a period where he couldn't speak. Trauma. I learned to communicate with him." Victor studied her face as if searching for lies. "And you just happened to recognize that my son was signing?" "Yes." Elena met his gaze steadily. "Mr. Moretti, I'm not trying to intrude. I just saw a child who was scared and I wanted to help. Nobody helps for free." The cynicism in his voice was absolute. Elena felt a flash of anger. "I'm a flight attendant. Helping passengers is literally my job. I don't want anything from you." Victor's expression didn't change, but something in his posture relaxed infinitesimally. "He hasn't spoken in 14 months. Not since—" He stopped abruptly. "Multiple therapists, child psychologists. Nothing worked." "Selective mutism often stems from trauma," Elena said carefully. "It's not that he can't speak, it's that he doesn't feel safe enough to speak." "Safe." Victor's laugh was bitter. "I've given him everything. Private schools, the best doctors, security. That's not what makes a child feel safe, Mr. Moretti." The words came out before Elena could stop them. She tensed, waiting for anger. Instead, Victor just looked tired. "What does?" he asked quietly. "Being seen, being heard, even without words." Elena glanced back toward the cabin where Marco sat. "Your son is trying to communicate. Someone just needs to listen." Victor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Less armor, more vulnerability. "Could you teach him properly, ASL?" "Sir, I'm a flight attendant, not a speech therapist. I have therapists. They don't work. You reached him in 5 minutes." Victor's intensity was almost overwhelming. "Name your price." Elena's mind raced. This was inappropriate on every level. Getting involved with passengers beyond basic service, accepting money, inserting herself into a family's private struggles. "I can't. $5,000 per week." The number hit Elena like a physical blow. $5,000. That was more than her monthly salary. That was her mother's rent for 2 months. That was Miguel's therapy co-pays for 6 months. "Mr. Moretti, that's incredibly generous, but 10,000. It's not about money." Elena's voice rose, then dropped as she remembered where they were. "I don't even know you." I don't know your situation, and frankly, something about this feels. She searched for the right word. Complicated. Everything is complicated, Miss Martinez. Victor pulled a business card from his wallet, pressed it into her hand. Think about it. Call me within 48 hours. Before Elena could respond, turbulence hit again. Mild this time, but enough to send her reaching for the galley counter. Victor didn't move, perfectly balanced despite the aircraft's movement. I should get back to my station, Elena said. One more thing. Victor's voice stopped her. Thank you for seeing him. Elena returned to her duties, but her mind was spinning. She went through the motions, collecting trash, refilling drinks, answering call buttons, while Victor's offer echoed in her head. $10,000 a week. It was absurd. It was suspicious. It was also the solution to every financial problem crushing her family. Throughout the rest of the flight, she found herself watching Marco. The boy had retrieved a small sketchbook from his backpack and was drawing with intense concentration. Every few minutes, he'd glance at Elena, and when their eyes met, he'd sign something simple. Hi. Clouds. Bird. Each time, Elena signed back, even from across the cabin. She saw Victor watching these exchanges with an expression she couldn't decipher. 2 hours from Los Angeles, Elena brought fresh juice to Marco's seat. As she set it on his tray table, the boy's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but urgent. She looked down into his enormous brown eyes. Marco's free hand moved in deliberate signs. Stay. Elena's heart clenched. She glanced at Victor, who was watching this interaction with hawk-like focus. I have to work, sweetie, Elena said softly, signing as she spoke. But I'm right here if you need me. Marco released her wrist and returned to his drawing. But when Elena moved away, she saw him clutch his rabbit tighter, his small shoulders hunched with disappointment. The descent into LAX was smooth. Passengers began gathering belongings, checking phones, preparing for arrival. Elena went through her landing routine, but her attention kept drifting to the Morettis. Victor was speaking quietly to someone on his phone. Marco stared out the window at Los Angeles spreading below them. Endless sprawl, palm trees, sun-bleached buildings so different from New York's gray towers. After landing, first class deplaned first. Victor stood, straightened his suit jacket, and gestured for Marco to follow. The boy gathered his rabbit and backpack with slow, reluctant movements. As they passed Elena at the aircraft door, Victor paused. Miss Martinez. My offer stands. Marco stopped too, looking up at Elena. His hands moved quickly. See you again? Elena's throat tightened. Maybe, sweetie. Please. The simple sign, the hope in his eyes, it broke something in Elena's chest. She crouched down to his level. I'd like that very much. Marco did something then that stopped Elena's breath. He smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face, chasing away the shadows for just a moment. Then Victor's hand landed gently on his son's shoulder, and they were gone, swallowed by the crowd of deplaning passengers. Girl, what was that about? Brenda appeared at Elena's elbow. That man looked intense. Just a passenger, Elena said, but her fingers closed around the business card still in her pocket. The rest of the workday passed in a blur. Elena and her crew had a 3-hour layover in LAX before the red-eye back to New York. She sat in the crew lounge staring at Victor Moretti's business card. Victor Moretti, VJM Enterprises, Private Consulting. The title was deliberately vague. Elena pulled out her phone and searched his name. The results made her stomach drop. Victor Moretti, alleged organized crime figure. Federal investigation into Moretti family operations. Moretti empire built on... Elena stopped reading. Mafia. The word wasn't explicitly used in the articles, too libelous without proof, but the implications were clear. Victor Moretti was dangerous. His world was violence and crime, and he wanted her to teach his traumatized son sign language. She should delete his number. Forget the whole thing, stay in her safe, ordinary life. Instead, she thought about Marco's eyes, about his desperate signing, about a child so scared he'd forgotten how to speak, trapped in a world of silence while the people around him stopped trying to reach him. Elena thought about Miguel, at 16, finally thriving, verbal, making friends, planning for college. She thought about the years of therapy that made that possible, the treatments insurance didn't cover, The bills that never stopped coming. She thought about her mother working 2 cleaning jobs at 63 because her daughter couldn't send enough money home. Elena looked at the card again. Her hands shook. 3 days later, her phone rang at 7 a.m. Unknown number. Miss Martinez? This is Victor Moretti. Elena sat up in bed, heart pounding. Mr. Moretti, I wasn't sure you'd actually call. I'm a man of my word. A pause. Have you considered my offer? Elena had thought of little else for 3 days. I have conditions. I'm listening. Daytime only. Public locations, parks, libraries, museums. Flexible schedule around my flight assignments. And this stays professional. I'm there for Marco, not for... She stopped, unsure how to phrase it. Not for my business. Victor's voice carried a hint of dark amusement. Agreed. When can you start? I have a flight to Chicago tomorrow, back Thursday. Friday afternoon? Friday 2 p.m., Central Park, Bethesda Fountain. I'll text you the details. Mr. Moretti. Victor. Victor. The name felt strange on her tongue. Why me? You could hire a professional ASL tutor. Someone with actual credentials. Silence on the line. Then, because in 5 minutes, you did what a dozen professionals couldn't in 14 months. You saw my son. Not his problems, not his condition. Him. Another pause. Friday, Miss Martinez. The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. In the kitchen, her roommate Jasmine was making coffee. Who calls at 7 a.m.? Jasmine asked, then saw Elena's face. Girl, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I just took a job, Elena said slowly. A tutoring job. Tutoring? Since when do you tutor? Since now. Teaching sign language to a kid who needs help. Jasmine studied her friend's face. There's more to this story. Probably. Elena stood, grabbed her own coffee mug. But right now, I'm choosing to focus on helping a child who desperately needs it. And the pay? Elena hesitated. Good. Really good. How good? Good enough that maybe Mom can finally quit her night job. Jasmine's eyes widened. Elena, what are you getting yourself into? I don't know, Elena admitted. But I can't walk away from that little boy. You didn't see him, Jazz. He's drowning and nobody's throwing him a rope. So you're going to? I'm going to try. Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth for late November. Elena dressed carefully. Jeans, a sweater, comfortable boots. Professional but approachable. She took the subway to Central Park, emerging into golden afternoon sunlight. Bethesda Fountain was crowded with tourists, street performers, and New Yorkers enjoying the weather. Elena spotted Victor immediately. He stood apart from the crowd, perfectly still, watching her approach. Marco sat on the fountain's edge, drawing in his sketchbook. Miss Martinez. Victor's greeting was formal. Thank you for coming. Elena, please. She sat down beside Marco, giving him space. Hi, sweetie, remember me? Marco looked up from his drawing. Recognition flooded his face, followed by that rare, beautiful smile. His hands moved quickly. You came, I promised, Elena signed back. Can I see what you're drawing? Marco hesitated, then turned his sketchbook around. Elena's breath caught. He'd drawn her. Not just her face, but the moment on the airplane. Elena crouching beside his seat, her hands forming the signs. You're safe with me. The detail was extraordinary. Every finger position correct, the emotion captured perfectly. Marco, this is beautiful, Elena breathed. The boy's cheeks flushed with pleasure. He signed again, faster now. You understood me. Nobody else does. I understand, Elena signed firmly. And we're going to make sure everyone can understand you. Would you like that? Marco nodded so enthusiastically that his curls bounced. For the first time since she'd met him, Elena saw hope in his eyes. Behind them, Victor watched his son's animated signing with an expression of wonder and something deeper. Grief, maybe, for all the months of silence. What do I owe you? He asked quietly. Elena looked at Marco, still signing excitedly about his drawings, about the airplane, about being understood. Just keep bringing him, she said. That's all. The weeks that followed established a rhythm that felt both natural and surreal. Every Friday, and sometimes Wednesdays when Elena's flight schedule allowed, She met Marco and Victor in Central Park. They rotated locations, the Ramble's winding paths, the Alice in Wonderland statue where children climbed and played, the quiet corner near Conservatory Garden where Marco could focus without distraction. Marco's progress was remarkable. Within 2 weeks, his signing had gone from hesitant fragments to full sentences. Within 4, he was teaching Elena signs he'd learned from YouTube videos during the week. His vocabulary exploded, not just basic needs and emotions, but complex ideas, questions, jokes. Why is the sky blue? He signed one December afternoon, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. Elena explained about light wavelengths and atmospheric scattering, her hands moving in practiced patterns. Marco absorbed it all, his eyes bright with curiosity that had been dormant too long. Victor was always present, maintaining a respectful distance. Sometimes he sat on a nearby bench, conducting quiet phone conversations in Italian. Sometimes he watched the lessons with undivided attention. His security detail, Elena had learned their names now, Frank and Anthony, positioned themselves strategically, always vigilant. "You don't have to stay every time," Elena told Victor one afternoon while Marco fed ducks at the pond. "If you have business, there's no business more important than this," Victor said simply. Elena studied his profile. Over the weeks, she'd noticed small things. The way his jaw unclenched when Marco signed something new. The rare smile when his son laughed silently at Elena's exaggerated facial expressions. The shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "He's getting better," Elena said. "The signing is helping him process. Dr. Chen told you that, right?" Victor had brought in a child psychologist, Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd been astounded by Marco's progress. She'd started weekly sessions that incorporated ASL, and for the first time, Marco was communicating his trauma. She did. Victor's hands were clasped tightly. She also said that Marco whispered a word to her yesterday. Just one. Safe. Elena's heart leaped. "Victor, that's incredible. Because of you." Victor turned to face her, his intensity almost overwhelming. "You gave him that word, that feeling." The moment stretched between them, weighted with things unsaid. Elena broke eye contact first, uncomfortable with the gratitude and something else she saw in Victor's eyes. "I should go," she said, checking her watch. "Early flight to Atlanta tomorrow." "Elena?" Victor's voice stopped her. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This week's payment." Elena had accepted the money, $5,000 a week, not the $10,000 Victor had first offered, because refusing it felt like false pride when her family needed it so desperately. But handling the envelope still felt strange, transactional in a way that didn't match what was happening between her and Marco. "Thank you," she said quietly, tucking it into her bag. Marco ran back to them, his cheeks pink from cold and excitement. He signed rapidly. "Next time, can we go to the Museum of Natural History? I want to show you the dinosaurs." Elena glanced at Victor, who nodded permission. "That sounds perfect," she signed back. Marco threw his arms around Elena's waist in a sudden hug. She froze for a moment. They'd maintained careful boundaries, professional distance, then slowly returned the embrace. The boy was so small, so fragile in her arms. When Marco released her and ran ahead to where Frank was waiting, Victor spoke softly. He's never done that before. Hugged someone voluntarily. Not since Maria died. Maria, Marco's mother. Victor had never spoken her name before. "I'm sorry," Elena said. "I can't imagine." "She was killed 14 months ago." Victor's voice was flat, emotionless in a way that suggested enormous emotion suppressed. Marco was in the apartment. He saw things a child should never see. Elena's stomach twisted. "God, Victor. He hasn't spoken since that night. Not one word. Until yesterday with Dr. Chen." Victor looked at his son, now laughing silently at something Frank was signing. The security guard had been learning ASL too. "You're giving him back his voice." "He never lost it," Elena said firmly. "It was just locked away until he felt safe enough to use it again." That night, Elena returned to her apartment in Queens, the envelope of cash heavy in her bag. Her roommate Jasmine was sprawled on their second-hand couch, watching reality TV. "How is tutoring?" Jasmine asked without taking her eyes off the screen. "Good. Marco's making real progress. Elena set down her bag, headed for the kitchen. And the mysterious father who pays you in cash? Elena tensed. What's that supposed to mean? Jasmine finally looked at her. Girl, I'm not stupid. Nobody pays $5,000 a week for tutoring. Who is this guy really? A father trying to help his son. A father with bodyguards. I've seen you get picked up, Elena. Black SUVs, guys with earpieces. That's not normal. Jasmine sat up. I'm worried about you. Don't be. It's completely safe. Is it? Because you've been jumpy for weeks. You check over your shoulder constantly, and you're lying to your mother about where this money is coming from. Elena had told her mother she'd taken a corporate tutoring position. Not entirely a lie, but not the truth either. I'm helping a child who desperately needs it. That's all that matters. What if it's not all that matters? What if you're getting involved in something dangerous? I'm not involved in anything except helping an 8-year-old boy learn to communicate. Elena's voice rose. Why can't you just be happy that I'm finally able to send Mom enough money that she can quit her night job? Jasmine stood, crossed to Elena, put a hand on her shoulder. I am happy about that. I just don't want you getting hurt. Promise me you're being careful? I promise, Elena said, and meant it. But careful became complicated on a Wednesday in mid-December. Elena was leaving her apartment building, headed to the subway for her shift, when a man approached her on the sidewalk. Middle-aged, expensive suit, cold eyes. Miss Martinez? Elena's hand tightened on her bag strap. Yes? I have a message for you. He handed her a manila envelope. From friends who are concerned about your recent associations. I don't understand. Sure you do. Victor Moretti, his son. Very cozy arrangement you've got there. The man smiled, and it was predatory. But here's the thing about Victor's world. People around him tend to get hurt, especially pretty young women who don't know when to walk away. Elena's heart hammered. Are you threatening me? Advising you. There's a difference. He nodded at the envelope. Take a look. Consider your choices carefully. He walked away before Elena could respond. With shaking hands, she opened the envelope. Photographs, dozens of them. Elena with Marco in Central Park. Elena and Victor at the museum. Marco hugging her outside the library. Each image was time-stamped, annotated. Someone had been watching them for weeks. The final photo made Elena's blood run cold. It was her, leaving her apartment that very morning, centered in crosshairs drawn in red marker. A post-it note was attached. Such a fragile thing. Life. Would be a shame if something happened. Elena's phone was in her hand before she'd made a conscious decision. Victor answered on the first ring. Elena? You're not supposed to call unless... Someone just gave me photos. Of me, of Marco, of us together, and threats. Victor, what the hell is going on? Silence then. Where are you? Outside my apartment, but... Get back inside now, lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except Frank. He'll be there in 10 minutes. Victor's voice was utterly controlled, which was somehow more frightening than if he'd been angry. Elena, do exactly what I say. Victor, you need to tell me what's happening. 10 minutes. Stay inside. The line went dead. Elena ran back into her building, took the stairs 2 at a time to her 3rd-floor apartment. Jasmine looked up from her laptop as Elena burst through the door. What's wrong? Lock the door. Deadbolt. Chain. Elena was shaking. Don't open it for anyone except a man named Frank. Elena, you're scaring me. I'm scared too. 9 minutes later, there was a knock. Elena approached the door cautiously. Who is it? Frank DeMarco. Victor sent me. Elena recognized the voice. She opened the door to find not just Frank but Anthony as well, both looking grim. We need to talk, Frank said. May we come in? Jasmine stood behind Elena, phone in hand, ready to call 911. Elena nodded. Let them enter. What's happening? Elena demanded. Who's threatening me? Rival family, Frank said bluntly. They've known about Marco for a while, but you're new. They see you as leverage, a weakness. Leverage for what? For controlling Victor. Anthony positioned himself by the window, scanning the street below. Mr. Moretti has enemies. People who'd use anyone he cares about to get to him. The words hit Elena like a slap. anyone he cares about. I'm just Marco's tutor. You're the first person Marco has opened up to in over a year, Frank interrupted. That makes you important to Victor, which makes you a target. Elena sank onto the couch. This was insane. She'd just wanted to help a child, and now she was caught up in mob warfare. I need to talk to Victor, she said. He's on his way. Should be here in 20 minutes. Frank's phone buzzed. He read the message, frowned. Make that 15. He's driving himself. When Victor arrived, he looked different. No tailored suit, just jeans and a leather jacket, his hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes found Elena immediately. You're okay? Physically, yes. Everything else? Not so much. Elena held up the envelope of photos. Who are these people, Victor? What do they want? Victor took the envelope, glanced through the photos with a controlled fury that was terrifying to witness. The Calabrese family. They've been trying to expand into my territory for months. This is pressure. Pressure? They threatened to kill me. They won't. Victor's certainty was absolute. Because if they touch you, they know what I'll do. The cold promise in his voice made Elena shiver. This is insane. I'm a flight attendant from Queens. I don't belong in this world. I know. Victor's facade cracked slightly. Elena, I never meant for you to be in danger. I thought keeping the sessions public limited would be safe. I was wrong. So what happens now? I just disappear from Marco's life, stop the lessons. Elena thought of the boy's progress, his growing confidence. Victor, that could devastate him. Which is why you're not disappearing. Victor sat down across from her, his intensity focused like a laser. You're going to have security, full-time. Frank and Anthony will work in shifts with 2 others I trust completely. They'll be discreet, but they'll be there. I can't live with bodyguards. You can and you will. This isn't negotiable, Elena. Victor leaned forward. These people are serious. They've killed for less than what's at stake here. I won't risk your life. Elena looked at Jasmine, who was watching this exchange with wide eyes. This is crazy, right? Tell me this is crazy. It's completely insane, Jasmine agreed. But, she looked at Victor. But you're not giving her a choice, are you? No. Victor's answer was simple, honest. Because the moment Elena became important to my son, she became someone I protect. That's not optional. What about my job? Elena asked. I can't have security following me onto airplanes. I've already spoken with your airline's management. Personal security due to threats. It's been arranged. Victor pulled out a check, handed it to Elena. And this is for any inconvenience. Elena looked at the amount and felt dizzy. $50,000. I don't want your money. It's not about want. Take it. Move somewhere with better security if you need to. But most importantly, don't stop working with Marco. Victor's mask slipped completely for a moment and Elena saw raw desperation. He's finally coming back to us. I can't lose him again. Elena thought about Marco's smile, his excited signing, the way he'd hugged her just days ago. A child finally feeling safe enough to emerge from his protective silence. Okay, she said quietly, but I have conditions. Name them. No more lying. If there are threats, you tell me immediately. If the danger escalates, we pause the sessions until it's safe. And Victor, she met his eyes directly. You find a way to end this. Whatever war you're in with these people, you end it. Because I won't be the reason a child loses another person he's attached to. Victor held her gaze for a long moment. I'll handle the Calabrese family. How? Better you don't know. He stood. Frank will stay here tonight. Anthony will take first watch outside. Starting tomorrow, you'll have a security detail whenever you leave your apartment. This is my life now, Elena said, still trying to process. I'm sorry. And for the first time, Victor's voice carried genuine regret. You didn't ask for this. No, but Marco didn't ask for any of his trauma either. Elena stood too. We don't get to choose what happens to us. We only choose what we do about it. Something shifted in Victor's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You're stronger than you look, Miss Martinez. I'd have to be to deal with you, Mr. Moretti. A ghost of a smile crossed Victor's face. Friday, usual time, but at my home instead of the park. It's more secure. Your home, my penthouse. Upper East Side. Marco would love to show you his room, I think. He talks about you constantly. Victor moved toward the door. And Elena? Thank you for not running away. I haven't decided I'm not running yet, Elena admitted. But I won't abandon Marco, that much I'm sure of. After Victor left with Anthony, Frank settled into the armchair with a book, establishing himself as the night's guardian. Jasmine pulled Elena into their shared bedroom. Okay, first, what the actual hell? Jasmine whispered urgently. Second, that man is in love with you. What? No, he's not. Girl, I watched him. The way he looks at you. That's not just gratitude for helping his kid. Jasmine grabbed Elena's shoulders. You're falling into something dangerous, not just the mob stuff, something deeper. Elena wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in her throat. Because somewhere between teaching Marco signs and watching Victor's face transform when his son smiled, something had shifted. The professional boundaries had blurred. She'd started caring about both of them more than was wise. What do I do? Elena asked quietly. I don't know, honey. But please, please be careful. With your heart as much as your life. That night, Elena lay awake, listening to Frank's quiet movements in the living room. Through her window, she could see Anthony in an unmarked car across the street. Her life had transformed in weeks from ordinary to impossible. She thought about Marco, probably asleep in his own room, clutching his worn rabbit. She thought about Victor, carrying the weight of a dangerous world while trying desperately to save his son from it. And she thought about herself, Elena Martinez from Queens, who'd learned sign language to help her brother, and now found herself caught between a Mafia war and a silent child's desperate need for connection. You're safe with me. She'd signed to Marco that first day. But who would keep her safe now that she'd stepped into Victor Moretti's world? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you. Elena stared at the message for a long time before typing back. For what? The response came quickly. For staying. For seeing us. For being brave enough to care. Elena set down her phone, her heart beating too fast. Jasmine was right. She was falling into something dangerous, and it had nothing to do with rival families or bodyguards. It had everything to do with the way Victor's voice softened when he talked about his son. The way he looked at her like she was something precious and unexpected. The way she'd started to care about both of them far more than a tutor should. Outside, the December night was cold and dark. Inside, Elena was guarded by men with guns. And somewhere in an Upper East Side penthouse, a little boy was probably dreaming of dinosaurs and the nice lady who understood his signs. Elena closed her eyes and made a choice. She wouldn't run. Not from the danger, not from the complications, not from the way her heart had started to betray her better judgment. She'd stay. For Marco. And maybe she was beginning to admit for Victor, too. The first snowfall of December arrived on a Friday, blanketing Manhattan in unexpected white. Elena stood at the entrance of Victor's building on Fifth Avenue, staring up at the Art Deco facade. Frank stood beside her, patient as always. You okay, Miss Martinez? Just nervous. Elena clutched her bag of teaching materials. I've never been to their home before. Mr. Moretti doesn't let many people in. The fact that you're here says something. The lobby was all marble and crystal chandeliers. A doorman greeted Frank by name, directed them to a private elevator that required a key card. They rose silently to the penthouse level. The elevator opened directly into Victor's apartment. Elena stepped into a space that was both exactly what she expected and surprisingly different. Yes, there was expensive furniture, original artwork, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. But there were also Marco's drawings taped to the refrigerator, a half-completed puzzle on the coffee table, and a worn stuffed rabbit sitting on the leather couch. Elena! Marco appeared from a hallway, signing excitedly. You came. Come see my room. I have new art supplies. Slow down, Tesoro. Victor emerged behind his son, and Elena's breath caught. She'd only seen Victor in suits or that one time in casual clothes. Today he wore jeans and a dark sweater, feet bare, hair slightly damp as if he'd just showered. He looked younger, less armored, more like a regular father than a mob boss. Thank you for coming, he said. Marco's been watching the elevator cameras since noon. I was excited, Marco signed, grinning. Come on. Marco's room was a revelation. Instead of the stark, impersonal space Elena expected, it was warm and lived in. Bookshelves overflowed with art books and graphic novels. A large desk held pencils, markers, and half-finished drawings. Posters of superheroes and dinosaurs covered the walls. In the corner sat a beanbag chair next to a window seat with cushions. "This is my special spot," Marco signed, pointing to the window seat. "I can see the whole park." Elena sat beside him, looking out at the snow-dusted trees below. "It's beautiful, Marco. I draw here when I'm sad," Marco signed, his expression suddenly serious. "When I miss Mama." Elena's heart clenched. She'd been careful not to push about Maria, letting Marco share in his own time. "Do you want to tell me about her?" Marco nodded slowly. He retrieved a framed photo from his nightstand. A beautiful woman with dark hair and kind eyes, holding a much younger Marco. "She smelled like flowers," Marco signed. "She sang to me, not with words I could hear, but I felt the vibrations. She learned signs for me. She sounds wonderful." Bad men came. Marco's hands trembled as he signed. They were angry, yelling at Daddy. "Mama hid me in the closet. She told me to be quiet, be safe." She signed it. His hands formed the familiar gesture. "You're safe with me." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Your mama loved you so much." I heard loud sounds. Mama fell down. She didn't get up. Marco's face crumpled. I couldn't help her. I was too scared to move, too scared to make sound. "Oh, sweetheart." Elena pulled him into a hug. "It wasn't your fault. You did exactly what your mama told you to do. She wanted you safe." Marco buried his face in her shoulder, his small body shaking with silent sobs. Elena held him, stroking his hair, letting him release the grief that had been locked inside for 14 months. She didn't hear Victor enter until he spoke quietly from the doorway. "Is he okay?" Elena looked up, still holding Marco. "He's telling me about Maria, about that night." Victor's face went pale. He moved into the room, sat on Marco's other side. For a moment, the three of them sat in silence. A man, a woman, and a traumatized child who'd finally found the courage to share his pain. Marco pulled back from Elena, wiped his eyes, and turned to his father. His hands moved slowly, deliberately. "I'm sorry, Daddy." Victor looked confused. "For what, Figlio mio?" "I couldn't save Mama, I just hid. I was too scared." "No." Victor's voice broke. He pulled Marco into his arms fiercely. "No, Marco. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You stayed safe like Mama wanted. That's all she wanted, for you to be safe." Marco clung to his father, and then, so quietly Elena almost missed it, he whispered, "Daddy." Victor froze. "Marco." "Daddy." Louder this time, the word rusty from disuse, but unmistakable. "I missed you." Victor's eyes flooded with tears the first time Elena had seen him cry. "I missed you too, Tesoro. God, I missed hearing your voice." Marco spoke again haltingly. "Mama said keep me safe. You kept me safe. Always." Victor pressed his forehead to his son's. "Always, I promise." Elena stood quietly, giving them space, but Marco's hand shot out and grabbed hers. "Elena, stay," he said aloud. His voice was soft, uncertain, but growing stronger. "Please stay." "I'm right here," Elena promised, sitting back down. Marco looked between his father and Elena. "You're both keeping me safe now." The three of them sat together in the window seat as snow fell outside, and Elena felt the magnitude of the moment. A child had found his voice again, a father had his son back, and somehow, impossibly, she'd become part of their family. Later, while Marco was occupied with his art supplies, Victor led Elena to the kitchen. He poured 2 glasses of wine with shaking hands. "He spoke," Victor said, as if still unable to believe it. "He actually spoke." "He's been ready," Elena said gently. "He just needed to feel safe enough. Because of you." Victor took a long drink. "Everything changed when you walked into our lives. Not just me. Dr. Chen, the therapy. You." Victor set down his glass, moved closer. "Elena, you gave him permission to be vulnerable. To trust again. That's not therapy. That's..." He struggled for words. "That's human connection. Real, genuine care." Elena felt the air between them charge with something dangerous. She stepped back slightly. Victor, I should maintain boundaries. Should you? His eyes held hers. Or is that just what you tell yourself because this situation terrifies you as much as it terrifies me? This isn't appropriate. Nothing about this situation is appropriate. Victor's intensity was overwhelming. A mob boss, a flight attendant, and a traumatized child who's finally learning to speak again. None of it makes sense. But it's happening anyway. I can't. Elena's voice failed her. I can't be what you need. I'm not part of your world. I don't want you to be part of my world. Victor's hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropped. I want you to be part of Marco's world. Part of our family. But that means danger, Elena. Real danger. The Calabrese family hasn't backed down. I know. Frank briefs me daily. Elena had gotten used to the security detail, though it still felt surreal. Have they made more threats? They will. It's only a matter of time. Victor's jaw tightened. I'm working on a solution, a permanent one. What does that mean? Better you don't know the details. Victor moved to the window, stared out at the darkening sky. But I want you to know. If things get worse, if the danger escalates, I have a plan to keep you and Marco safe. Victor, I need to know you trust me. He turned back to her. Despite everything I am, everything I've done, I need to know you believe I'll protect you both. Elena thought about the last few weeks. The bodyguards who'd become familiar presences. The way Victor had restructured his entire security apparatus to keep her safe. The desperate love in his eyes when he looked at his son. I trust you, she said quietly. I don't know why, but I do. Something in Victor's expression softened. That's more than I deserve. Probably. Elena managed a small smile. But Marco deserves a father who's trying. And you're trying so hard, Victor. I see it. I'm trying to be worthy of both of you. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Before Elena could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Can Elena stay for dinner? He asked, his new voice still tentative but growing stronger. Please? Victor looked at Elena. It would be our honor if you'd join us. Dinner was surprisingly normal. Victor cooked pasta. Apparently he'd learned from his Italian grandmother, while Marco set the table and Elena made a salad. They ate together at the dining table, Marco chattering in a mix of signs and words about his drawings, his favorite dinosaurs, a book he was reading. It felt like a family. That's what scared Elena most. After dinner, while Marco played video games in the living room with Frank, who'd been invited to join them, Victor and Elena cleaned up together. He's like a different child, Victor said, watching his son through the doorway. 3 hours ago, he was almost completely nonverbal. Now he won't stop talking. It happens that way sometimes, Elena said. Once the dam breaks, everything floods out. Thank you. Victor's voice was rough with emotion. I don't know how to repay you for giving him back to me. You don't have to repay me. Elena dried her hands on a towel. Watching him heal is payment enough. Is it? Victor moved closer. Because I want to give you more. I want to give you everything. Victor, don't. I'm falling in love with you, Elena. The words came out raw, honest, impossible. I know I shouldn't. I know it's complicated and dangerous and probably the worst thing I could do. But I can't stop it. Elena's heart hammered. We barely know each other. I know you learned sign language for your brother when you were 12 years old. I know you send most of your paycheck home to your mother. I know you chose a job where you could help people even though it doesn't pay well. I know you have a strength that makes you walk into danger if it means helping a child. Victor's eyes burned into hers. I know you're the bravest person I've ever met. What else do I need to know? That I'm terrified. Elena's voice shook. Of you, of this situation, of how much I've started to care about you and Marco. I came here to teach sign language. I didn't sign up for falling in love with... She stopped, realizing what she'd almost admitted. With what? Victor asked softly. Say it. With a family that isn't mine. Elena's eyes filled with tears. With a little boy who looks at me like I'm the answer to his prayers. With a man who makes me feel things I've never felt before even though everything about this is impossible. It doesn't have to be impossible. How? How does this work, Victor? You're a... Elena dropped her voice. You're a criminal. People want to kill you. Kill me now too, apparently. How do we build anything real on that foundation? We changed the foundation. Victor took her hands. I've been planning an exit for months, before I even met you. Maria's death showed me this life will only bring more death. I can't raise Marco in this world. What kind of exit? The kind where I cooperate with federal investigators, where I testify against the people who killed Maria, where Marco and I disappear into witness protection. Victor's grip tightened. And I want you to come with us. Elena stared at him. You're serious. Completely serious. New identities, new city, legitimate business, normal life. It won't be easy. We'll lose everything. Money, power, all of it. But we'll be alive. And Marco will be safe. Victor pulled her closer. Say yes, Elena. Say you'll take this leap with us. I can't just abandon my family. You can stay in contact with your mother, your brother. Supervised, protected, but not cut off. Victor had clearly thought this through. The FBI will arrange it. You'll have to leave your friends, your job, your identity. But you'll have Marco. And you'll have me. This is insane, Elena whispered. People don't do this. People in love do impossible things. Victor's hand came up to cup her face. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't lie awake thinking about us. Tell me you're not already halfway in love with my son. Elena couldn't lie. I think about you both constantly, but Victor, this is so fast. Then take time. Think about it. I'm meeting with federal prosecutors next week. I haven't agreed to anything yet. But if I do this, if I burn down my entire world to build something better, I need to know you'll be there. Victor's thumb brushed her cheek. I need to know I'm building it for you. From the living room came Marco's laugh, a sound so rare it made them both turn. The boy was giggling at something on the screen, completely relaxed, completely himself. He needs you, Victor said quietly. I need you. And I think maybe you need us too. Elena thought about her tiny apartment in Queens, her rotating flight schedule, her lonely life spent helping others while neglecting her own dreams. She thought about Marco's smile, Victor's rare vulnerability, the feeling of being part of something bigger than herself. I need time, she said finally. This is the biggest decision of my life. Take all the time you need. Victor released her, stepped back. But Elena, whatever you decide, thank you. For seeing us. For caring about Marco. For making me believe that maybe somehow we deserve a second chance. That night, as Frank drove Elena home through snowy streets, her mind spun with possibilities and impossibilities. Her phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Marco wants to say goodnight. A video call came through. Marco's face filled the screen, his smile bright. Good night, Elena, he said carefully. Thank you for staying today, for teaching me, for... He switched to signs, for being family. Good night, sweetheart. Elena managed through tears. I'll see you soon. After Marco disappeared, Victor's face replaced his. Sleep well, Elena. Dream about possibilities. What if I'm not brave enough? Elena asked quietly. You are. You've proven that every day since we met. Victor's smile was gentle. You told Marco he was safe with you. Now I'm telling you. You're safe with us. Whatever you decide. The call ended. Elena sat in the back of the car, watching Manhattan blur past, and thought about safety, about trust, about the impossible choice between the life she'd built and the family she'd found. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Jasmine. Girl, where are you? Are you okay? Elena typed back. I'm okay. But Jazz, I think I'm in love. With the mob boss, with the possibility of something real. Even if it's impossible. Come home. We need to talk. But Elena wasn't ready to talk. She needed to think, to process, to understand what she was feeling and what it might cost her. She thought about Marco's voice, finally freed from silence. About Victor's eyes, dark with hope and fear. About the way she felt when the three of them were together, complete in a way she'd never experienced. She thought about witness protection, new identity, new life, leaving behind everyone and everything she knew. And she thought about what it would mean to walk away from Marco and Victor, knowing she'd abandoned them when they needed her most. By the time Frank pulled up to her building, Elena had made a decision. Not the final one. That would take more time, more thought, more courage than she currently possessed. But she'd made the first decision. She wasn't running away. Whatever came next. Federal investigations, witness protection, dangerous rivals, impossible love. She would face it with her eyes open and her heart, despite her better judgment, dangerously, completely involved. She texted Victor. Next Friday, same time. I'll be there. His response was immediate. We'll be waiting. Elena climbed the stairs to her apartment, where Jasmine was waiting with wine and questions and concern. She would talk to her best friend, process her feelings, maybe find some clarity. But deep in her heart, Elena already knew the truth. She'd walked into Victor and Marco Moretti's life as a helpful stranger. She was falling into their future as family. And somehow, impossibly, terrifyingly, that felt exactly right. That